Well, DeMarcus Cousins with some closure to New Orleans. You traded for him a couple years back. Oh, man, the venom, the hatred that's been all around NBA Twitter, around the country and the world, that he is now a member of the Warriors. Well, DeMarcus Cousins let Marc Spears of the Undefeated behind the curtain. He explained how the four-time All-Star went from no offers to landing with the champs. And Marc Spears spoke with our guys earlier.
You paint a picture of a player disillusioned about the market for his services after receiving no offers on the first day of free agency. How did he get from that moment of clarity to calling the Warriors?
Well, it's certainly a tough free agent market, and you also have the Achilles injury, which either probably made teams hesitant or not interested. But you're also talking about a guy who averaged 25 and 12 and 5. That's Hall of Fame numbers, you know, and so it certainly had to be humbling, put him in an emotional place, and I think he decided, you know what, I'm going to take this into my own hands. I'm going to play 1 year, prove that I'm healthy, get back to being Boogie, and he called the Warriors. Perhaps he may have called some other teams, but he wouldn't go into detail about that. Called the Warriors, which was certainly a surprise phone call for Bob Myers, the GM of the Warriors, and ultimately talked to KD and Steph and Draymond, and decided that, you know, he was going to come to the Bay Area, which is still stunning news for Warriors fans and NBA fans.
An amazing turn of events. You also wrote that Pelicans GM Dell Demps had already informed Cousins that New Orleans wasn't planning to re-sign him. Does that mean at any cost, not even a short-term offer to see if Cuz could get back to form?
Yeah, well, he wouldn't go into detail, or I wouldn't say wouldn't. We didn't go into detail about that. Obviously, you have a certain finite time to talk about things, but he basically said that he did speak to the Pelicans, but no formal offer was made. And so obviously there's probably semantics on what conversations took place in the past and this, that, and the third, but he said that he was told that he wasn't wanted back there.
And Spearsy, with that being
said, which is a key thing. Like you could talk about contracts and what was offered and this, that, and the other, but he specifically said that he was told that they didn't want him.
And Spearsy, with that being said, we know he's a talented player. How much of his history had a lot to play in this for the Pelicans?
But here's the thing. I'm going to throw it back at you, 3D. What did he do bad in New Orleans?
Nothing. That's why most of us are so shocked that they didn't offer anything. Because we know the Achilles injury is one thing, and it may take you a while to get back to form, but is there something you may have found out behind closed doors we don't know why they offered him nothing?
This is the one thing, and my family's from New Orleans, and I know New Orleans inside and out. GW Finn, shout out. Go eat there. But the people there loved him. He did more in 1 year for the community than most guys do in entire careers for the Saints or the Pelicans. He had a comedy show where he raised money for charity days after blowing out his Achilles. He had a Santa Claus event in New Orleans giving gifts to underprivileged kids. So, I mean, he got the community to love him real quick. He played his heart out. They're actually 9-1 in their previous 10 games when he got hurt. Pelicans were playing good ball, so I'm sure there had to be a lot of hurt feelings because he put monster numbers up for him. There was no issues. I guess if you had to find a knock, Texels, right?
Right, yeah.
And he actually told me he was at a point where him and Coach Gentry, who he got along with and loved, told him, you're not going to win. So he said he was actually trying to start talking to the referees more to try to find a common ground. And it wasn't really working, but he was trying. So I really don't what happened in Sacramento, but I think getting traded to New Orleans changed him a lot. And there's really nothing big that anybody could say that he did bad in the Pelicans uniform.
Spears, talk a little bit now moving forward. Obviously, the 800-pound gorilla in the room is still going to be the Achilles. And I know that DeMarcus has talked about trying to be ready for camp, but have you had a chance to talk to medical people, whether it be on the staff or what have you, that see a scenario where that is possible, plausible, and would they even want him to try to get back at that point? Or is this a scenario where they're hoping that maybe by All-Star break he can become integrated into that rotation?
Well, in May and yesterday, he was adamant about the fact that he'll be ready for training camp. And I know people probably think that's crazy based on the injury, and I understand that concern. You watch his videos that he's posting, he's running on a treadmill. It's different than running in a basketball game, but he's back on the court doing some things. So he's competitive. He's adamant about being back. But then, once he signs with the Warriors, the big question is, what do the Warriors doctors say? What does Steve Kerr say? What does Bob Myers say? He's going to a place where he doesn't have to rush to get back, where he could be conservative. The Warriors always err on the side of caution of injuries. They won't want him back 100%. They'll want him back 110%. So they'll give him the opportunity and perhaps maybe even tell him, no, you're not playing, and they may have to, because he's such a competitive guy. And I know he's chomping at the bit to compete, to be a part of a winner, to play with the Hampton Five, that I know he'd probably go out there at 80. But we'll see soon what the Warriors think, and ultimately they'll probably have to make a collective decision on when he will play.
Marc, obviously, as a team, you just don't get this opportunity very often where an all-star caliber player calls up and says, hey, I'd like to play for your mid-level. At the same time, there is the injury situation and when he'll come back and the uncertainty of all that. And there are other names out there that perhaps the Warriors would have considered with that mid-level money. Was this an absolute no-brainer for Bob Myers and the Warriors, or did they have to consider who else they might have been able to bring in for the same dough?
Now, if a millionaire walks down the street and sees $100 laying on the ground, does he leave it there?
No, we got extra $100, boss.
Hey, ask them two dudes next to you with all that money. They gonna pick up that 100, and that's what the Warriors did. Bob Myers saw this odd area code from Alabama, picked up the phone, and probably had to think twice. We might have had to put him on FaceTime to make sure it was the right guy. I can't wait to hear what Bob Myers has to say. But, hey, you get him for the mid-level, Jesus, that's the greatest mid-level signing in the history of the NBA.
And Spears, real quick, that conversation that Bob Myers had with Steph Curry and Draymond and KD, how much of being around the Olympics and All-Stars, so they could say they know Cousins and Bob, we can bring him in and he's not going to be a deterrent in the locker room?
It's certainly huge. The four All-Stars have spent significant time with him. The one thing that Cuz said that stood out to me is that Steph was ecstatic. He was surprised how ecstatic Steph was that he was coming to the Bay, how happy he was. And that, along with KD, and KD told me the winning culture and the team camaraderie is something that pushed him over. Draymond talked to him while he was in Greece. It's kind of like the Hampton Five thing all over again that convinced KD to come. So were there some other teams involved? Cousins wouldn't say. It's been speculated, but you got the champs, man. You got those cool cats to play with, those talented cats to play with. And this guy has dealt with so much losing. He missed the playoffs. Why not go from one extreme to the other and have a chance to compete with a championship with some fellow future Hall of Famers?
Well, Marc does a great job of laying out what DeMarcus' side of the story is, albeit there's a ton of debate online now about what has gone down. Nobody's feeling bad for where DeMarcus has ended up in Golden State. But, Caron, in pro sports, more times than not, talent wins out over everything. Sure, a torn Achilles is a big factor here, but what is it about DeMarcus' reputation that appears to be too much for teams to overlook?
You know what? I had the luxury of playing with DeMarcus Cousins in Sacramento for a season, and he's just a straight up and down, just real brother, man. And I think that he's just misunderstood. And you heard Marc talk about, all the things that he do with cousin clause off the court and all the things. I think it don't get, highlighted. And, he's a winner. He's a winner at heart. He wants to win, and that's what it's all about. And he made a winning decision from a basketball standpoint and a business standpoint by going to the Warriors.
But you do hold him accountable for some of the actions that have taken place, right? He is not totally without blame in earning some of the issues that he's had.
Yeah, but he's a talented individual, and there's no way that, a guy, let me just look at the numbers again. 25, 12, and 5 this season.
Yeah.
Come on. Like, for him to be on the open market, I know obviously he's injured, and you want to see how big comeback from an Achilles injury. But look, on the open market, a 3-year deal for him, max dollars. Like, I felt like everybody that had a spot available or cap space should have made that happen. And that wasn't the case, so you cannot fault him for going to a winning situation where he don't have to play physically until after All-Star break possibly, and then come back in the best shape of his life, win a championship, improve his value on the open market. So many teams with cap space next summer. It's a great business move.
Yeah. I think you also have to be careful what institutions you choose to believe in terms of, teams are going to tell you one thing, team sources will tell you one thing this time of year. It's very rare that you get to talk to a player and get it the straight skinny from him. Marc talked to DeMarcus Cousins. Why would he have to lie on his own money, in a free agent summer? I mean, you think he's going to leave 3-4 times as much as he signed for on the table out of pride or, because his ego wouldn't allow him to, to take something less? That's ridiculous. This is a situation where he had to go out and find a deal. He went out and made the best deal for DeMarcus Cousins. It upsets the order of things around the league for players, for fans, everybody. Right. But so what? Because that's the only person he's had to be concerned with going forward is DeMarcus Cousins.
And he knows if he's a good citizen, does his job, it's going to handsomely reward him at the end of it. And if he's not, they'll just cut him, and there's no loss for the Warriors.
And he's playing with guys that he knows. He's played international ball with Clay. He knows.
Coming back, guys, with Summer League highlights and looking for a bounce-back performance from the number 5 pick of the draft.